All of you big strong men, Uncle Sam needs your help again. Got himself in a terrible jam way down yonder in Vietnam. Put down your books and pick up a gun. We're gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. We're all gonna die.
On Thursday, April 30th, 1970, President Nixon announced that the Cambodian incursion had been launched the day before by United States combat forces with the help of the South Vietnamese government.
And to guarantee the continued success of our withdrawal and Vietnamization programs, I have concluded that the time has come for action.
Nixon's campaign address sparked massive student protests across the nation, and Kent State University in Ohio was no exception. The day after Nixon's address, May 1st, about 500 students gathered around the Victory Bell to begin a rally against the war. They planned the protest that night. When night came, the students gathered in the streets, blockading roads and breaking windows on their way. Even more trouble exploded when some people left the bar and threw bottles at cars and windows. Sometime during the chaos, a bank window was broken and an alarm was set off. More and more people joined the vandalism and looting. A crowd of 120 people gathered before police showed up and drove the protesters back to campus with tear gas and nightsticks. The following morning, at 11 a.m., Mayor Leroy Sachem of Kent City held a meeting in City Hall to discuss a curfew for the students, disgusted with their actions the previous night. Later that day, he met with a representative of the Ohio Army National Guard. After their meeting, Sachem decided to call Governor Rhodes and request the National Guard to be sent to Kent State University. At 8 p.m., the students organized a large demonstration. Some even carried anti-war slogans. The march grew, and soon the campus ROTC building was ablaze, and thousands of protesters watched as it burned to the ground. They even threw rocks at firemen and slashed their hoses to prevent them from putting the fire out. When the guards finally arrived at 10 p.m., they pursued the crowd into their dormitories with bayonets and tear gas. At least one of the students was bayoneted. By May 3rd, the whole campus was fully occupied by the National Guard, and there was a feeling of mutual hostility. Governor Rhodes held a press conference in which he spoke about the protesters. He called them un-American and claimed they were revolutionaries set on destroying higher education in Ohio.
We are seeing here, at the city of Kent especially, probably the most vicious form of campus-oriented violence yet perpetrated by dissident groups. They make definite plans of burning, destroying, and throwing rocks at police and at the National Guard and Highway Patrol. This is when we're going to use every part of the law enforcement agency of Ohio to drive them out of Kent. We're going to eradicate the problem. We're not going to treat the symptoms.
He even threatened to obtain a court order declaring a state of emergency that would ban further demonstrations, but never went through with it. The threat heightened resentment, and at 8 p.m. there was another rally held in the Commons. 45 minutes later, the guardsmen were forced to use tear gas to disperse the crowd. The students reassembled on Main Street, where they held a sit-in, hoping to meet Mayor Sachem, but when 8 o'clock struck, the guardsmen announced curfew, and the students were forced to go back to their dorms. The guards were even forced to bayonet some students. On Monday, May 4th, guardsmen, knowing some students had planned a rally on this day, attempted to sabotage the rally by handing out leaflets stating the event was canceled. The students didn't pay any attention, and nearly 2,000 people met in the Commons. The victory bell was rung to start the meeting. The National Guard feared the peaceful protest might escalate into violence, so with the help of the local police, they attempted to disperse the students. Patrolman Harold Rice approached the students in a jeep to tell them they have to disperse or face arrest. As the guardsmen feared, the students reacted with violence. The students threw rocks at the patrolmen, hitting one, and forced the jeep to retreat. The guards, in return, threw tear gas into the student crowd, which failed because of the wind, and was met with a second volley of rocks and angry chants of pigs off campus. Soon, a group of 77 guardsmen, armed with M1 Grand rifles, appeared and students began to retreat. The guardsmen followed and ended up in the parking lot by a chain-link fence and stayed there for 10 minutes, unsure what to do. At 12:24 p.m., deciding to march back up the hill, 24 of the 77 guardsmen began to shoot their weapons at the students. 67 rounds were fired in 13 seconds, leaving 4 students dead, 2 of whom weren't even participating in the protest. Jeffrey Glenn Miller and Allison B. Krause were participants, but William Knox Schroeder and Sandra Lee Shore were simply walking from class to class. 9 other students were injured, 1 being permanently paralyzed. When the news about the massacre spread, schools nationwide held strikes and approximately 100,000 marched in Washington to protest the war against the killings at Kent. Most people were outraged, but there were some who believed that more students should have died. There were many songs about the massacre that were released in the 1970s, and even more for decades to come.
13 shots at 12:24 p.m. 13 seconds, 67 shots and 4 students dead.
Brothers, listen to my story. Sisters, listen to my song. Gonna sing it for young people who are now dead and gone. 2 of them were 20 and 2 were just 19, just stepping out to meet the world like so many you have seen. It was in Kent State, Ohio, on a Monday afternoon. The air was full of springtime. The flowers